Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. We finally have sunshine in Seattle. It's been raining for about the last week. We're supposed to have sunshine in Seattle out here during the summertime, so I'm glad to report that summer may be arriving here finally. I think it has arrived to various other places in the country, though. I'm glad you're spending time with me tonight, and I hope I can help you find some ways that might improve your Lyme care, or at least give you some better understanding of this illness as well, too. The way these webinars work, you create them with your questions. And so the way to do that is to write them to me. And where you do that is over on the right-hand side of your screen at the bottom, you're going to find a chat box. Go ahead and write your questions in that chat box. Now, realize that each time you hit enter, it creates a separate question. All right. So what I ask is do not hit enter until your question is complete, and then send me the completed version. From my side, what I'll do is I'm going to post that question so that everyone can see it on their screen. The only way you will actually see the question, though, is if you're participating in the live webinar. And the recorded versions of the webinar, that question does not display, so I am going to read the question so that those that are listening in on the recording tomorrow actually have a chance to be able to hear what the question is about, too. During the webinar tonight, I am making a recording, so tomorrow in the morning, you'll get an email from me saying that the recording is ready. You can find that on the Lyme Q&A webinar page at treatlyme.net. And on that page, there's a link that you can go to the recordings page too. Okay. But in the morning, as long as you participated tonight or signed up, you'll get an email from me saying that it's that when the recording is available for you to look at. So if you happen to miss something tonight, just realize you're going to be able to go ahead and listen to the recording tomorrow. During the webinar tonight, I am going to be doing some display of my computer. You're going to see my computer where I'll show you articles in the Treat Lyme book that I think you might find helpful. Or I might even show you some supplements that might be beneficial regarding what the question is too. So we have a lot of people showing up here tonight. I took last week off, and so it looks like we got a good crowd that has shown up. I'm going to jump into the questions here in a second. Realize that I may not get to your question. There's a lot of people that do write questions, especially towards the end. If you're showing up now and writing them, I probably will get to them. But just have patience as I try to work through these one by one. And even though I can be long-winded, I'll try to watch how long-winded I can get as well, too. Okay? All right. So with no further ado, go ahead and get started here. This first question is from Deborah. Hi, Deborah. Let's see. I'm being treated for Lyme, Bart, and Babesia. I have foot neuropathy, and the pain is slightly less, but I'm noticing more numbness. On Biaxin, Mepron, and grapefruit seed extract, any ideas? Also, Hutunia and Sida, actually. Got the new Mariva 500 SF from your store. Does it work as well? Thanks. Okay. Let me talk about the Mariva first. So Mariva, everyone, is a brand name made by Thorne for a type of curcumin. And many of you may be aware that I like using curcumin, which is a component part of turmeric, the Indian seasoning turmeric. I like using curcumin because it does a good job of lowering inflammation in Lyme disease caused by a group of chemicals called cytokines. And many of you are familiar with my work where I talk about Lyme disease symptoms are really too many cytokine symptoms. Basically, your white blood cells, when they see a germ, will make cytokines to cause the immune system to work better. But in Lyme disease, they make too many cytokines, and there's too many cytokines that basically give you all of your Lyme disease symptoms. There's many things you can take to lower cytokines, and I have a whole article on that. I show you here, and after I answer this question, I'll show everyone where they can look at that article. But one of the things I mentioned in that article is, and one of my favorite things to use is curcumin. All right, so Thorne has a product called Mariva 500, which is curcumin that's microscopically wrapped in fat. And they microscopically wrap it in fat to help increase the absorption, because curcumin on its own is poorly absorbed. Turmeric on its own is poorly absorbed. And they recently, the fats that they were microscopically wrapping it in prior to this new product called Mariva 500 SF, the fats were derived from soy. And some people have soy allergies. And so they decided to change their fat source to being fat from sunflowers. And so, yeah, it works just as well. I don't see any difference in how these products have worked. It's just a different fat source that they're using to microscopically wrap the curcumin so that it gets absorbed. So to answer your question, yes, I think it works just as well. In terms of what you're taking, and I'm just going to review this for everyone. So everyone, the Biaxin and Mepron is a good treatment for Babesia. It's one of the many kinds of treatments I recommend for Babesia, and you'll find my other recommendations in an article at treatlyme.net, the Treat Lyme book, under an article called Kills Babesia, Brief Guide. But Babesia and Mepron is a good one. The Biaxin, the Biaxin Mepron is a good one for Babesia. Biaxin is useful for Lyme. It treats intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme. The grapefruit seed extract treats a third form of Lyme called the cyst Lyme. So the Biaxin grapefruit seed extract is the Babesia treatment here. And then Houtunia and Sida acuta are two herbs that I like to use to treat Bartonella. They work about 70% of the time. There are prescription options that work better, and you'll find my recommended prescription options in the article called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Guide, okay? But the Houtunia and Sida will work about 70%, 75% of the time, all right? All right, so that's kind of what you're taking there. All right, so the neuropathy, it sounds like the pain is less, but you're having more numbness, which maybe that so one aspect of your neuropathy is doing better, which is the pain, okay? But I also hear that the numbness is doing worse. And I find that happens sometimes, even as neuropathy is getting better. Sometimes the pain will get better before the numbness does. But there are some things you can do to help heal the nerves while you're waiting. So your nerves are injured because of the infections, but sometimes you actually have to do nerve repair work on top of just treating the infection, all right? And there is an article I have about neuropathy repair that I'll point you to in a little bit, okay? But there's a few things that you should do. Number one, to repair the nerves, I'd like to also repair the mitochondria, which are the energy factories found in every cell. But if you have neuropathy, the mitochondria are probably injured as well too. And mitochondria are what generate energy. So they give us our energy, but they also give cells energy to heal, all right? And so I'd like to repair the covering of the mitochondria using a group of fats that happen to be the same fats that make up the nerve cell covering, all right? And it has to use a product called NT Factor, and I'd have you take 2 pills 3 times a day. So it's rebuilding the fat membrane of the mitochondria. Your energy factory is called mitochondria, but it's also rebuilding the covering of the nerve that's injured as well too, all right? So that's 2 pills 3 times a day. The other thing that I would do if you were not on Mepron, so people that aren't on Mepron that have neuropathy, I also have them take coenzyme Q10, CoQ10, 400 milligrams 2 times a day. That's a very powerful antioxidant that's used to generate energy in mitochondria in your nerves and throughout your cells, okay? But when you're on Mepron, you can't use it. It interferes with Mepron treating Babesia, all right? And then the third thing that I would do to get your mitochondria working better and to help with nerve repair is to be on either glutathione, oral glutathione. I like using a product called Trifortify Orange, 500 milligrams, which is 5 milliliters 1 time a day. Glutathione is the restorative, repairs everything antioxidant, can help heal injured nerves, all right? If you can't tolerate the glutathione, then take the building block for it. And that happens to be something called N-acetylcysteine, also called NAC, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, okay? So that's what I would do. So nerve repair is the same as mitochondria repair, which is be on NT Factor, 2 pills 3 times a day, coenzyme Q10, 400 milligrams twice a day, but don't take it if you're on Mepron. And then the third thing is raise glutathione levels, either by taking glutathione, I like using Trifortify Orange for that, or N-acetylcysteine. Okay, so that's what I would wind up doing for that. Okay, now I've said a lot of things, and I want to point out some articles that y'all can look at later. They're part of the Treat Lyme book. So I'm going to do a screen share here. All right, let me get over there. All right. So I'm on I've redesigned the landing page for the Treat Lyme book, so it's a little bit clearer about what the site's about, which is the Treat Lyme book, signing up for these webinars to give you help, and then the online consult. So these are the 3 ways that I have put together to try to help people online with Lyme, and that's what I'm about doing. I want to help as many people with Lyme as I can. So these are the 3 resources, all right? Now, in the Treat Lyme book, the menu for the Treat Lyme book is up here. And I'm going to look at the chapters called Infection Treatment Plans, right here, all right? And in the chapter called Infection Treatment Plans, you're going to find the article I talked about, Kills Babesia, is right there. And the article called Kills Bartonella is right there as well, too, okay? So those are the two that I was talking about a few minutes ago, all right? And then the other thing I want to look at in the chapters is the chapter called Brain and Nerves, and the article called Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain, okay? This is the article that you will look at later that outlines how do you repair the nerves. Now, I basically just told you about that, but this is where you would find that article, okay? All right. So let me go back here again. Oh, one last thing. So I did mention that I would have you take glutathione, and I mentioned NAC. So this is the supplement store where my patients get their supplements, and Dr. Brooke and I chose supplements here that we think have the greatest chance of working because we know the brands that we use, that we picked, use high quality supplements, okay? They use high quality ingredients that have the best chance of working, okay? So if you're looking for supplements that have a good chance of working, take a look here. These are the ones that we wind up using. You can either search for them by name, by clicking on the search bar, or you can look for them by product. So for instance, Thorne has a product called Cystoplus, which is the N-acetylcysteine that I was just talking with you about, okay? You can find it all here at our store, all right? All right, let me go back here. All right, so Deborah, thank you for that question. I hope that gives you some useful information then too. All right, let me go ahead and move on here. I'm just getting rid of Deborah's question. I gotta take the next question here. Hello, Kathy. Let's see, what are the advantages and disadvantages of taking large doses of B12? The recommended 3 capsules of MethylGuard contains 20,000% of the daily value. Okay, so MethylGuard, everyone, is a product by Thorne that has in it 2 major things. One is a type of folate called 5-methotetrahydrofolate, and a type of vitamin B12 called methylcobalamin. Each pill has 400 micrograms of the methylcobalamin and 400 micrograms of the 5-methotetrahydrofolate, okay? Now, what this product is used for is people that have a detoxification problem called MTHFR. Now, many of you may be familiar with this, but I'm just going to do a quick explanation of it, all right? So the master detox chemical that is used to pull toxins out, fatty toxins out in the liver is something called glutathione. And glutathione's down here. It's a downstream product, but it's the master detox chemical used by the liver to pull toxins out, right? Now there's many chemical reactions, and way up here, way before you get glutathione down here, the starting spot is that we have to be able to take folate from our diet, and we have to be able to activate it. So that's way up here. And then after you activate folate, there's a bunch of small detoxing reactions, more minor ones, but then you get down here to glutathione, which is the master detox chemical, okay? So there are some people that have a genetic defect where they're not able, the enzyme called methotetrahydrofolate reductase, MTHFR, is genetically programmed in a way that it doesn't turn out correct, okay? So they have a genetic MTHFR defect. Now, if that enzyme that takes folate, the diet form, and converts it into an activated form, which is the 5-methotetrahydrofolate in MethylGuard, if that enzyme is not turned out correctly, then downstream you don't get enough glutathione and you don't detox adequately, all right? So you can correct it. And to correct it, we give you the activated folate in the MethylGuard. And then it's also helpful to give a methyl donor, to have something that gives a methyl group into this detox pathway, which is called the methylation pathway. And so we give B12 in this, not because of the cobalamin part, but because of the methylate form. We need to donate a methyl group into this reaction. Now, Is the amount that is being recommended here, which is much more than daily value, too much? No, because we can argue that the daily value is too low for this kind of condition, okay? So if you have this condition, you're not going to take too much of the B12. We want to have that methylated version, all right? And when we give, for instance, people that have B12 deficiency problems or they have neuropathy caused by B12 deficiency, we'll sometimes give up to 1 milligram a day is not uncommon, sometimes more than that, okay? And the 3-methylcobalamin have 1.2 milligrams, which is 1,200 micrograms in it. It's not too much, all right? You're not going to hurt yourself by getting too much folate, just so you know. Especially if you have the MTHFR, you need the methyl groups, and that's is actually not too high an amount, okay? So it's safe to do, all right? I hope that answers your question there, Kathy. All right, thank you for that question. All right, let's go on. Let's see, Craig's got a question here. I'm on, hi Craig. Let's see, I'm on Doxy, Malarone, Plaquenil, and Bactrim. Is grapefruit seed extract as effective in fighting cyst form of Lyme as tinidazole, which I can't tolerate? My naturopath recommended nutribiotic capsules versus liquid. Is liquid better? Okay, so in terms of treating the cyst form of Lyme, all right, well, let me just talk about this regimen that you're on. So everyone, Doxy for Lyme is going to treat intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme, all right? Plaquenil can sometimes, some of my colleagues will still use Plaquenil to treat the cyst form of Lyme, but there's actually competing evidence out there that shows that it may promote cyst formation. So I don't like relying on it to treat the cyst form of Lyme. Your provider may have you on it because of its cyst fighting capabilities. I don't think it works well for that. Your provider may also have you on it because sometimes it can lower acid levels inside cells. And when you lower acid, when you make the cells less acidic, sometimes the doxycycline may work better. So they may have you on the Plaquenil to change the acid environment of your cells so Doxy will work better, okay? I don't think with Doxy really need to do that, but some practitioners will do it. But in terms of the things that we use to treat cysts, the strongest agent we can use is either metronidazole or tinidazole. Metronidazole, many of you know, is Flagyl, all right? Now, both metronidazole and tinidazole can be harsh drugs, though. They just have a really toxic feeling about them. They can really wipe you out, and they're hard for people to take. They both can give some GI upsets, so they can give nausea sometimes they can give diarrhea, sometimes they can give abdominal pain. And you're not supposed to take either one of them with alcohol because alcohol interacts with them in a way that can give you a side effect of having doubled over in the emergency room abdominal pain, all right? So they're hard drugs to take, but they're the strongest cyst busters we have. Then probably about 80-90% is potent. And this is just based on my experience. I think grapefruit seed extract is probably about 80-90% is potent. I think it works well. And I think it's a really reasonable option when you cannot use a tinidazole or a metronidazole. Another thing I will use is rifampin, actually. Rifampin, which is the lead drug that I'll use to treat Bartonella, also can treat the cyst form of Lyme. It's probably about in that 80% potency range as well, too. So that's another prescription you could consider. And then finally, other things that I will use to treat cyst Lyme is the combination of the herbs Banderol cemento. Banderol cemento come to us out of the Cowden protocol. I don't really care for Cowden. I don't think Cowden works that well, but there are two things in Cowden that does work well, and that would be, or that do work well, and that's the Banderol cemento as Lyme germ killers. All right, those two used together, according to some petri dish experiments produced by Eva Shapi, that's SAPI, about 5 years ago. She was able to show that Banderol cemento individually kill all three forms of the Lyme germ and can remove some biofilm. But if you use the two together, you get a whopping kill, much more than you would expect by using them individually. And they remove 100% of the biofilm on her petri dish experiments. But they also can get at the cyst form of the Lyme, all right? So sometimes if I don't have another way of going at the cyst form of Lyme, I may just use Banderol cemento while still using antibiotics, but just use Banderol cemento because I know it can kill cysts and it removes 100% of biofilm. So sometimes I'll do that, all right? But by themselves, you don't really need to use other antibiotics because they are a whole treatment for Lyme by themselves. And I find the herbs Banderol cemento to work effectively against the Lyme germ 85 to 90% of the time, which is the same benefit I find for any 2 prescription drug option to go after Lyme, or a Biaxin and grapefruit seed extract, for instance. I find Banderol cemento to work as well as those, okay? So anyhow, in terms of cyst, tinidazole, metronidazole, strongest, 80 to 90% potency. Just below that would be your grapefruit seed extract, and rifampin, the prescription rifampin, and I'd probably put Banderol cemento in that kind of category as well too. All right. So I hope that answers your question and gives you some ideas to think about there, Craig. All right. Good luck. Oh, capsules, liquid, and I think it all depends on the person. Sometimes liquid will work more strongly. Sometimes the pills will work more strongly. You could go either way on that, actually. Good luck, Craig. All right. Hello, Sherry. Let's see. MRI of lumbar spine showed possible arachnoiditis, which mimics many Lyme symptoms, pain, numbness, and tingling, etc. Is there any testing that could confirm this? Is it possible that Lyme or co-infections has caused the inflammation in my spine? The answer is yes. So even though arachnoiditis and Lyme can look the same, it may be Lyme giving you that inflammation. All right. So if you have positive Lyme testing and you have arachnoiditis, I'd still treat for Lyme. That's how I would wind up going about doing that. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Thanks for the very helpful webinar. You're welcome. Every day, all day long, I have extreme backaches in the shoulder, neck, and spine area. Also, my muscles and body seem to ache all over. Is this a Bartonella symptom, or could it just be an overall nervous system problem? Any suggestions or thoughts on why this? There's a second part to this question wandering around. Oh, there it is. As to why this is having leg and hand weakness common. Oh, no, I guess. I don't think that was the second part of the question. Hold on, let me go back here. So, Lori, you've got a wandering second part that I can't figure out, but I can answer part of this, okay? So if what you're having is achiness, so that if the quality of the pain is achy usually means muscle pain, muscle inflammation, muscle pain, okay? Myalgia, muscle pain, all right? On the other hand, if you have a quality to your pain that is more nerve pain, which would be qualities of sharp, stabbing, shooting, piercing, burning, or electrical, that's nerve pain. Now, nerve pain can sometimes be from Lyme or from Bartonella. Muscle pain more often is going to be part of Lyme, maybe Babesia, but more often part of Lyme, actually. All right. And then also the co-infections, Ehrlichia and Anaplasma, can sometimes give myalgias predominantly too. Now, if you've ever been on a tetracycline for at least 2 weeks as part of your Lyme germ treatment, you've taken care of the possibility of the Anaplasma and Ehrlichia. And in fact, I actually don't even test for those co-infections because somewhere in my Lyme germ treatments, I'm going to put people on a doxycycline or a tetracycline or a minocycline for at least a couple weeks, okay? All right. So in terms of this kind of, if it's an achy pain, I would say make sure you're treating for your Lyme. If it's nerve pain, make sure you're treating for Lyme and Bartonella. Okay, so that's just a couple of things to think about with your pain. Make sure you're getting at the underlying muscle problem, or I'm sorry, infection problem that's triggering it. Okay. Now, other things that you can do for the muscle pain is to lower inflammation. So for that, I usually suggest doing things that lower cytokines. And my favorite thing to lower cytokines, I already talked about it earlier tonight, is curcumin. I like a product made by Thorne called Mariva 500 milligrams, 1 pill 3 times a day. So get your inflammation down, okay? Second thing that I like doing when people have a lot of myalgias is to give magnesium, all right? So magnesium, it helps your muscles relax. It can help let go of some of that spasm that they may be in. If we look at what's happened to humans, all of us, majority of us are magnesium deficient. If we were to do testing, we'd find that most of us are short on magnesium. Probably has something to do with the fact that our soil is really nutrient depleted these days. And so so the other thing I'll do is have people replace magnesium. I don't do testing for it, but I'll have them do magnesium. My favorite salt form of magnesium for muscle achiness is something called magnesium malate. Sometimes citrate can help too, magnesium citrate, or you can get a mixture of it. So for instance, Thorne has a mixture called magnesium citramate, which is magnesium citrate and magnesium malate, okay? And I usually have people take anywhere from 300 to 600 milligrams at bedtime. Now, take it at night because it can make you sleepy, all right? Now, be aware, magnesium, when you take it, can sometimes decrease the absorption of either Zithromax or Biaxin when you're on them. So just be aware of that. You want to take them separated from each other, okay? But that's what I would do for your myalgia is treat your germs, be on the curcumin that I've mentioned, or other things that lower cytokines, especially if you can't tolerate the curcumin. Some people can't. Then try the other cytokine suggestions that I have, okay? And then the third thing is be on magnesium, all right? Now, I was going to show everyone an article earlier on cytokines, and I forgot to. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to show it to you here. So I'm going to do a screen share here again, everyone. All right, so in the Treat Lyme book, I'm going to go back up here to the chapters again. And in the chapter called Herxheimer and Cytokines, there's this article called Control Cytokines, a Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms in the Immune System, okay? If you take a look at this, this is the article where I talk about what cytokines are. And I also, there's a video in here that talks about the cytokines too. And I start talking about what we can do to lower them, okay? And there's a variety of supplements that you can use to do that. You'll find them all in this article, all right? So take a look at this later. I talk about, in the article, I talk about using curcumin, but I also give you many other options in there as well too, all right? So get those cytokines knocked down, all right? Thanks, Lori, for that question. Good luck to you. Hello, Jim. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What do you think burning spots on my brain and sudden drunkenness comes from? Bart, Babesia. I'm on Ceftin, Biaxin, Tinidazole, and Crypto. Boy, Jim, I don't know. Just that symptom alone, burning spots, and then also drunkenness. I honestly don't know. I would need probably to ask you a bunch of other questions. So just with that, with this much that you said, I don't know. That's the best I can say. All right. Sorry about that, Jim. And good luck. Hello, Victoria. Hold on here just a minute. I get a sip of water. Hi, Dr. Ross. Since taking thyroid meds, I now sweat profusely at night and in the day. Does that go away? It has been 1.5 months on the meds. Also, I am on cemento and Banderol for 7 days now. Can I start taking lumbar kinase, and if so, how much? Okay, so regarding the thyroid, you know, it may be a side effect of the thyroid medicine for you. That it may just be stimulating you too much, actually. I would consider stopping it, actually, unless there is another reason that they have you on it. If you have low thyroid, you may even try considering a different form. So for instance, if your thyroid medication is Armour thyroid or desiccated thyroid, which is ground up thyroid gland, if you're having these kind of sweats, you might try Synthroid instead, or vice versa. You might try to switch to a different option. But by now, that sweating should be gone if it was just a startup. So it sounds like it's some kind of a side effect issue to me, okay? So regarding the lumbar kinase, you don't need to take it if you're on Banderol cemento, right? So the reason to use lumbar kinase, everyone, is a group of enzymes that come from the skin of earthworms. Yep, earthworms. I like Lyme disease. We get to use all of these very interesting things. So their Lyme germs have the ability to cover themselves in a layer of slime, which is made up of a mucopolysaccharide sugar slime substance in which various bacteria, including Lyme, can live, okay? And then they have a protein matrix, a protein skeleton that holds them together. Lumbar kinase is a group of enzymes that actually break down fibrin, a type of blood clotting protein that the bacteria use to create the protein skeleton of the biofilm, all right? So in theory, it could break down biofilms. Now, Banderol cemento, we know from Petri dish experiments, does a great job of breaking down biofilm. In fact, they're probably the strongest anti-biofilm agent we have, all right? So because of that, you don't need to be on lumbar kinase. And besides, it would be really hard to do this combination. So the Banderol cemento, you have to have on an empty stomach. And what that means is you can't take anything beginning 30 minutes before you take the Banderol cemento through 2 hours after you take the Banderol cemento. The lumbar kinase you want to take on an empty stomach too by at least 1 hour either side. So you start getting into a scheduling nightmare doing this kind of a regimen, okay? And you're really not getting anything extra by being on the lumbar kinase. So my question is why? I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to do that. If you do want to use lumbar kinase, though, as a way of breaking up biofilms, the dose is 20 milligrams 2 times a day, okay? Now, there's other things you can use besides the lumbar kinase and the Banderol cemento, tinidazole, the prescription tinidazole. According to research by Ipot, who also did the Banderol cemento research, her research shows that tinidazole gets rid of 95% of biofilm, all right? Now, about biofilms, everyone, I have a whole article on it. You can take a look at it later. I'm going to be adding an update to that article probably over this weekend. I'm going to be adding a piece about using the sweetener called Stevia. Stevia is a plant that can be used as a sweetener. And it has some evidence that it might reduce biofilms by around 40%. So it's not the greatest, but it can lower biofilms too. But I'm going to add a piece about stevia in that article. But that article, even without the stevia piece in it, does a good job of describing biofilms, talks about tinidazole, talks about Banderol cemento, talks about lumbar kinase. But I make a point in that article, and that is, just because you have biofilms doesn't mean that it's blocking your treatment, all right? So we do know biofilms exist. We see them under the microscope. But various antibiotics, according to the research work of Eva Choppy, she's been able to show that most antibiotics have some ability to break down the biofilms. In addition, before we had all this work that's been done about biofilms years ago, before we even knew about biofilms, I never used to do anything to address them. And probably 90% of my treatments would work without addressing biofilms. So just because they're there does not necessarily mean we need to do something about them. And in fact, I don't really even advocate doing something about biofilms until you're about 6 to 9 months into treatment. And it's at that point that if a person isn't getting significantly better, then I might try to do some targeted treatments on biofilms, okay? All right, so let me just do a quick screen share here. All right, so let's see here. All right, so I'm going to look in the chapter, and I'm going to go under the problem solve section, biofilms, all right? All right, and in here, I have an article on lumbar kinase. In this chapter, I have an article on the Itoba bark extract, all right? But take a look at the main part of this article, which is right here, which is this biofilms gated community. This is the main article. And you're going to see where I spend quite a bit of time describing biofilms, what we know works, what we know doesn't work, what we theorize works. It's all here. The only thing I'm going to be adding this weekend is a piece about stevia into this article as well. Okay? All right. Let me go back here. All right. Thank you for that question, Victoria. Oh, in terms of how much stevia, so stevia, if you're going to use it, don't do the powdered version. I would get it from Nutrimetics, actually. And you want to do about 7 drops 1 time a day. Okay? All right. Hello, Laura. Is having leg and hand weakness common with Lyme? Anything that helps the weak legs? I feel like my legs are going to give out. This is not an adrenal issue, is it? Okay, so weakness can mean a few things, all right? So weakness, if it's, could mean that the nerves that make your muscles work are injured from Lyme, okay? So you've got to be able to have nerve signals going to the nerves, or muscles, helping them to work, all right? Weakness also can be a symptom of cytokine excess. And remember, I talked about Lyme symptoms being cytokine excess symptoms. Weakness also could be that the mitochondria energy factories that power every one of our cells, weakness can mean that they got injured. Weakness also could be from having low thyroid, and weakness could be from having low adrenals, okay? So there's a variety of things that can contribute to the weakness. My approach when I get people that have weakness is a few things. One is treat the underlying germs, all right? So make sure you're taking care of your Bartonella, Babesia, Lyme, if they're part of what your problem is, all right? The second thing I'll do is I like to make sure that I correct low thyroid. And this is at the very beginning of treatment. Now, thyroid testing, as many of you know from reading the Successful Treatment Recipe, my Lyme disease treatment guideline, I advocate, or reading the Treat Lyme book, I say don't rely on testing for thyroid. It's unreliable. You got to look at symptoms, all right? So if you have enough symptoms that suggest low thyroid, you should take thyroid. And those low thyroid symptoms are cold intolerance, or the person has to wear a lot more layers than everyone around you to stay comfortable. Other symptoms of low thyroid include hair loss, it can include dry skin, and muscle achiness and muscle weakness can be part of that as well too, all right? So thyroid, my favorite way of treating thyroid is to actually use ground up thyroid gland called desiccated thyroid. And I usually will start at 30 milligrams one time a day, all right? So that's something to consider as well too, okay? Now, in terms of the other things to look at doing mitochondria repair. I have a whole article about that. Yeah, those are just some thoughts, okay? To figure out how to target your treatment, I would need to know more things, but I'm kind of just giving you the differential list of things that can cause muscle weakness, all right? Now, I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. All right, so I'm back in the Treat Lyme book again, everyone. You know, look in the chapters. There's a chapter on energy and fatigue. And I would take a look at this article called Power Up, Energy, and Mitochondria, okay? And this will talk about what do you do to fix your mitochondria to help with some of that muscle weakness and even to help your nerves start working better, okay? So I would take a look at this, all right? Let's see if there's anything else I'd have you. Yeah, that's what I would take a look at in terms of that, okay? All right, let me go back here again. All right, thanks, Laura, for that question. All right, hello, Eric. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. My wife is taking Banderol, Cemento, Hutunia, and Sida Acuta per your book. Can we mix them together? Do you still find the Banderol Cemento as effective as antibiotics? She's been on antibiotics for 2 years. And can she be on Mepron with antimicrobials? Mahalo for your help. You're welcome. All right, so there's a number of questions there. Let me try to pick that apart, okay? So everyone, Banderol Cemento, again, I think works 85 to 90% of the time. I think it has a great of a chance of working as prescription antibiotics to treat Lyme. And I like using them sometimes if people get into a situation where the traditional antibiotics don't work. I find sometimes switching to Banderol Cemento can help move the treatment forward. So I will use it in what I call persister Lyme, all right? Lyme that persists, not getting better while on antibiotics. Banderol Cemento can be a path forward out of that, all right? So yeah, I think it can help, all right? Hutunia and Sida Acuta, everyone, Eric and his wife, they're using this to treat the Bartonella. Again, I think that works about 70, 75% of the time. All right, can they be mixed together? Yep, I have people take them all at the same time. That literally means all at the same time. So if you want to actually put them in a glass of water and drink them down, or if you want to squirt them into your mouth, you can do it that way too. But you can take them all at the same time without any problems at all, okay? All right. And can she be on Mepron with the antimicrobials? Yeah, she can take Mepron at the same time as she's taking these things as well too. I have no problem with people doing that, all right? Now, about your Banderol Cemento, Sida, and the Hutunia, I know that Cowden, in the Cowden protocol, at least with Hutunia, Banderol, and Cemento, Cowden says that his herbs are supposed to be taken on an empty stomach, without food, and without other medicines and supplements. I disagree with the other medicines and supplements. I have people take it with other medicines and supplements all the time, and I find no decreased chances of it working, okay? So you can take it with other things. I do agree with Cowden, though, that we should not take these with food. And I mentioned that earlier tonight. You want to take them at least 30 minutes away from, you don't want to have them beginning 30 minutes after or before you eat. I'm sorry. You don't want to take them beginning 30 minutes before you eat through 2 hours after you eat. Okay. All right. That would be the only caveat that I would have for you there. Okay. And then, so just so you know, I've been gathering information to write. There's 2 articles I'm planning on putting together in the next 7 days. One is on stevia and its role in treating Lyme that's not getting better, also in its role of treating biofilms. Okay. The other is on something called persister cells and what I would also then term persister state, okay? So there's some evidence that says that Lyme, when people's Lyme doesn't get better, that some of those cells may turn into what is known as a persister cell, which is a type of cell that just stops responding to antibiotics. We know that also occurs in the world of leprosy and in the world of tuberculosis, for instance, okay? But I think there's more than that. I think that actually when people aren't getting better, it's because some of their Lyme germs may be turned into persister cells. But also I'm terming a coin called persister state. And I think persister state actually has 3 parts to it. One is Lyme does go into these persister cells, which they just stop responding to antibiotics. But also I think what happens is that Lyme moves more into biofilm communities where it's harder to get at them. And that Lyme turns more into cyst forms, okay? So you're going to see an article coming out this week where I'm going to give you more ideas about how to treat persister state, including treatments for the persister cells, but more broadly, what do you do about biofilms and cyst Lyme? And I've got some ideas that I've been working with. One of those includes using a medicine proposed by Dr. Richard Horowitz called dapsone. And so as part of what I'm writing over the next 7 days, you'll see something on dapsone as well, too. I know many of you are aware of that, okay? So there's a group of articles that I've been gathering information. I'm ready to put pen to paper here soon. And my plan is within the next 7 days, you'll see something on stevia, something on dapsone, especially Dr. Horowitz's trials where he found it to be beneficial in people that are having persister Lyme. And then my ideas on what do you do about persister state Lyme, which involves persister cells, biofilms, and also cyst Lyme. So you're going to see a lot more information coming out. So stay tuned to the Treat Lyme book. You'll probably see those posted up on Sunday is what my intention is at this point. All right? All right. Thank you for letting me digress there. All right. Thanks for that question, Eric. All right. Hello, Christy. You'll see if I have chronic Lyme and an MTHFR gene defect, how does that affect Lyme treatment? Should the Lyme disease be treated first or the MTHFR defect or both concurrently? If I treat the MTHFR defect, would it put Lyme disease in remission? Okay, so everyone, as many of you know, you were listening in tonight, I talked about what an MTHFR defect is, which is basically you've got a genetic problem resulting in a malformed, incorrectly formed enzyme called methotetrahydrofolate reductase, MTHFR. And as a result of that, you're not going to be able to take diet folate and adequately convert it into activated folate. Therefore, downstream, you're not going to make enough glutathione and you're going to have impaired detox, okay? All right, that's the problem, all right? Now, I don't find even with MTHFR that you're totally knocking out all glutathione production. You're just knocking out some of it. So you're still detoxing, all right? It's just that it's impaired. What I usually will do is I treat all at the same time. I will start correcting for my MTHFR defect, and I will do Lyme disease treatment. Now, can you put Lyme in remission by correcting MTHFR? No. So Lyme disease ultimately is something called I call a total load phenomenon illness, which is there are many things that collectively add together to create illness or disease, okay? And there are certain things that are bigger factors in that dis-ease than other things. Your biggest factors are Lyme and the co-infections. And the other big factor, if you happen to be one of these people, is if you're a person that cannot get mold toxins out, that is a big factor as well too, okay? MTHFR, though, I find to be one of the small factors. And in fact, I'm usually not even going to deal with it or even look for it unless I'm about 6 months into treatment and the rest of the things I try don't work, okay? So it's a more minor contributor to a person not getting well not a major contributor to a person not getting well, all right? It's not one of the big raindrops that fill up your overflowing rain barrel, for instance, okay? So again, I usually will not start even looking for it or considering it until a person is about 6 months into treatment, all right? Now, everyone, I mentioned earlier tonight how to treat it, but I'm not going to go back through it again. I'm going to show you how to find information on it. And actually, I'm going to do a screen share because there's a couple things I want to show you here. All right, so I'm going back here. We're going to go back to the Treat Lyme book. I want to show you resources that you can look at later, all right? So in the chapters, if you want to look up more about the MTHFR, look in the detoxification chapter here. And in here, I talk about this article called MTHFR and Detoxification of Lyme Bite. Okay, this is where I talk more in detail about the MTHFR. Okay, now I want to show you another chapter that I have, which is called Can't Get Better, Do This. All right. And in this chapter, I describe the things that I might do 6 months into treatment or 6 to 9 months into treatment if somebody is not getting better using my treatment protocol, all right? So my treatment protocol, which you'll find in the treatment protocol tab here, we're going to go there. And so you want to make sure you're doing all these things first. This is a successful treatment recipe, okay? So number one, you want to make sure you get sleep. And I talk about ways to do that. Number two, I like being on a paleo diet for people. Number three, lower cytokines. Number four, take an herb that helps your body deal with stress. Number five, correct hormonal problems. Number six, be in a good multivitamin. Number seven, get yeast out if they're there. Number eight, treat your Lyme infection. Number nine, do some basic detox steps that you'll find in the article called Lyme Detoxification 101, The Basics, which does not include MTHFR. Number 10, treat your co-infections. All right. And then here I call it part 13, special considerations for 6 months and beyond, which is actually the article the chapter I was just showing you. Okay. But what you want to do if you're not getting better at 6 months or beyond, after you've done all the core components, the 12 steps up above of the successful treatment recipe, then is when you start looking at these other things like the MTHFR problem, like figuring out if Lyme or mold toxins might be a big part of your problem, like looking for heavy metal toxicity, like treating biofilms, okay, like dealing with chronic virus infections, like fixing your mitochondria, to see, looking and trying to fix your mitochondria, making sure you treated your co-infections. I talk about that all here again. Maybe trying an autoimmune illness treatment called low-dose naltrexone. Maybe trying to re-regulate inflammation in your immune system by doing LDI. I talk about that here. And absolutely always making sure you don't have too many yeasts that start contributing to the problem, okay? So these are the things that I know a number of my colleagues will jump in right away and start dealing with. I don't. I wait 6 to 9 months because I find the other 12 steps up above of the successful treatment recipe are really your core ideas. And in fact, if you deal with those are your big raindrops. Those are the big factors, okay? These down here for most people are more the minor factors. The only one I would say that can be a major factor for some is this Lyme and mold biotoxins, all right? For some people, if you have somebody that has a history where they were exposed to black mold when they got sick with Lyme, sometimes you've got to go after your mold toxins right away, all right? And I talk about that when you click this link right here, that'll give you information on how you find that article, okay? All right, so there are, as you can tell, there are many things you can address to get better in Lyme, but what I've tried to do in writing the successful treatment recipe, my Lyme disease treatment protocol, is to look at the things that give you the greatest chance and the things that are probably the big ticket items, the ones that if you fix these often, that's all you need to do. Because even if you do those first 12 steps that I talked about and you get better, it doesn't matter if you have an MTHFR problem. Most of us can cohabitate with our MTHFR problem. It doesn't cause us a problem, right? We don't need to fix every problem that somebody has in Lyme disease to get well. We just need to fix enough of them and the biggest problems to get well, all right? You don't have to fix everything. All right. So anyhow, in terms of timing, I just wanted to go through that with you as well too, Christy. So anyhow, thank you for that question. Good luck to you. Hello, Leslie. You'll see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Would you please comment on the reliability of the iSpot Lyme test from Pharmacin Labs? I tested positive with interferon gamma secretion at 95 SFU. Okay, so everyone, the iSpot is a test also called an ELISpot. And the ELISpot done by Pharmacin Labs is called iSpot, okay? There are also, many of you may be aware of a lab over in Germany that you can have done here in the States and then it's shipped to Germany called Armin Labs. Armin also does a very effective ELISpot as well too. He just calls it an ELISpot, okay? What happens in an ELISpot, whether it's the Pharmacin ELISpot or whether it is Armin's Labs ELISpot, is we're looking to see if your immune system recognizes Lyme germs. Does it react against them like it's been exposed to them before? And specifically, we take a type of white blood cell called a T cell, and we look to see when it's exposed to Lyme proteins, does it make certain cytokines like interferon gamma? That's like a type of a cytokine, actually, okay? And we look to see, so what we're trying to see is, do your T cells make cytokines, the kind we would expect them to make only if they've been exposed to Lyme before, only if it's been in you, okay? So that's what this is measuring. Now, we don't have a lot of controlled studies looking at this. Pharmacin has done a study to see how effective their lab is. And there are problems with how they conducted their study, okay? But in their study, it looks like they have a claim that their test will find Lyme about 95% of the time. There's various problems in how their study was done, and I think that their claim is a little bit overstated, actually. But it is a tool that might be useful to identify Lyme if it's there, okay? Now, some of my colleagues are using the iSpot as a test to see, as a way of determining if treatment is done or if the Lyme is still in you. And that's not what it was designed to do. We don't know how long after a T cell's been exposed to Lyme that it keeps making cytokines in response to having that Lyme germ there. Maybe it keeps making them forever. We don't know. So my colleagues that are using this as a means of seeing if Lyme is done, I think are wrong. And I wouldn't use it that way. So it may be useful at identifying Lyme 95% of the time. But I think that is overstated. I think it may actually have something that's less than that. And even when it's done by Armin Labs, and Armin, I think, is a good guy. I think he's got a good lab going there. But I think at best, it may find Lyme about 95% of the time. As to whether it's truly a reliable lab, I don't know. I think that the whole way of using this as a Lyme test is still a bit more on the experimental side, even though Armin Labs has been doing it for a long time as well, too. Okay? All right. I think I have a whole article on Lyme testing. I grade the various Lyme tests, okay? And I think I give it a C, a grade C. The best test we have actually still is the Western blot, believe it or not, and I give that a grade B. So, I mean, I don't think we have the greatest Lyme testing. In fact, a lot of diagnosing Lyme is not relying on testing. We have to rely on what the clinical story and the clinical picture tells us because we don't have great testing. We just don't, all right? So anyhow, if you're interested in the other Lyme tests and how I grade them, let me do a quick screen share here. Okay, so in the Treat Lyme book, there is a chapter on testing. I have it under the Lyme Disease 101 heading here. All right, so test. And there is an article where I review Lyme testing, okay? The only one that is not on here that I need to add, and this is probably about 2 or 3 weeks out from now I'll be doing it, is there is a newer test called a nanotrap test that I think it's too early to tell if it's going to be a useful test. I think I would still call it experimental, but you'll see me write something in there eventually. But in terms of the treatment, the testing that we have used over time, that we have some history of being able to work with, I do review all of them in there and I give them a grade. So if you're looking for my opinions about testing, take a look here at this article, a review of the Lyme infection test, pass or fail, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, thanks for that question, Leslie, and good luck. Hello, Andrea. Let's see, I would like to know the treatment does the awful, I would like to know with treatment, does the awful perineum pain and nerve pain go away? Have you heard of this kind of pain with late stage neurologic Lyme? What could I take now to help with the pain? Okay, so perineum, everyone, is pain kind of down in the vaginal area or down in that area. Okay, that's the perineum. And if it has qualities of sharp, stabbing, shooting, piercing, burning, or electrical, that would be nerve pain. And nerve pain is kind of hard to treat. But yes, as you treat your germs that contribute to that nerve inflammation, those nerves can repair and they can heal and that pain can go away. So first of all, treat your infections, all right? So treat your Lyme, treat your Bartonella. If you happen to have Babesia contributing, make sure you treat that, all right? So treat the infections you know you have, make sure you treat them with germ killers, okay? Kill them, all right? All right, number two, for nerve pain, repair the nerves. And so I mentioned earlier tonight my regimen, my strategy for repairing nerves, which involves using NT factor, glutathione. If you are not on Malarone or Mepron for Babesia, you can use coenzyme Q10, 400 milligrams twice a day. And if you don't eat red meat, you should be on something called acetyl L-carnitine. All right, now I showed you earlier tonight that you'll find the article that describes how to repair nerves. It is in the brain and nerves chapter. Follow all of those steps to repair your nerves. All right, so because that you got to repair the nerves to deal with the nerve pain as well too. Okay. All right, then finally, you may need to use pharmaceutical medicines that can help regulate that nerve pain until you can get healing. All right, so we can use anti-seizure medicines like gabapentin or something called Lyrica. We can use antidepressant medicines like trazodone, sometimes can help with that kind of nerve pain, okay? Sometimes we have to use narcotics. Yeah, you can use things to regulate the nerve pain, which tend to be the anti-seizure medicines or tend to be antidepressant medicines can help regulate that as well too, okay? But then repair the nerves. So follow the steps that I outlined earlier tonight. You can find those in the Treat Lyme book. In the Brain and Nerves chapter, there's one on repairing nerve injury, okay? And definitely killed the germs that can be contributing to that nerve injury as well too, all right? Good luck, Andrea. You can get better. I just want you to know that, okay? All right. And thank you for that question. Hello, Val. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Could you comment on the physiologic mechanisms involved in debilitating fatigue, often accompanying chronic Lyme and herxing? Thank you so much. Okay, so Val, and hold on here just a minute. Okay, so fatigue has a number of components to it. All right, and in fact, there is a whole article I have called, I think, Fatigue, I think it's Fatigue 101, the basics. I'll show it to you in a little bit, okay? That you can take a look at later, all right? But the fatigue is ultimately due to cytokine excess, and I talked tonight about cytokines already, all right? That cytokine excess gives fatigue as an effect of too many cytokines. In addition, those increased cytokines disturb your sleep, which can lead to fatigue. Those increased cytokines interfere with the brain's ability to correctly regulate your adrenal and thyroid gland. And so you need to deal with adrenal and thyroid dysfunction. Even when testing is negative, you probably still have adrenal and thyroid dysfunction, and you should correct those. And I talk about that in the article, Fatigue 101, the basics. I'll show that all to you again in a minute here, okay? All right, so you want to lower cytokines, correct hormonal problems, do whatever it takes to get sleep. Even if you have to take a drug to get sleep, okay? And then finally, the other thing that can contribute to fatigue is a result of having all of these germs in you can lead to an overproduction of oxidizing agents And oxidizing agents damage the outer covering of your mitochondria. Your energy factory is called mitochondria. So about 6 to 9 months into treatment, if you're not getting any better from treating Lyme and getting sleep and lowering cytokines and correcting your hormones, 6 to 9 months in, you might want to go ahead and start repairing your mitochondria. Okay. Now, about Herxing and why energy gets worse. Well, a Herx reaction, what happens in a Herxheimer reaction is the immune system sees your dead bug parts that get, from killing Lyme germs. There's a release of proteins, I call those dead bug parts, and toxins from the inside of the germ. And that triggers more cytokines, all right? So remember, I talked about cytokines earlier tonight. Cytokines are made in excess in Lyme. And when they get made in excess, they give you all your Lyme symptoms, including more fatigue, okay? So Val, I hope that gives you some ideas there. And then let me show you the article that you can take a look at later, which gives you detail on the steps you can take to improve your energy. All right, so I'm back in the Treat Lyme book here. I'm going to go to the chapter called Problem Solved, and I'm going to look at energy and fatigue. And there is an article in here. Oh, here's what it's called. It's called Fix Fatigue, Boost Your Energy, the Basic Steps. Okay, this is the article I was trying to tell you about. Take a look at this one later. It talks about all the basic steps you want to take to improve your energy, okay? So Fix Fatigue, Boost Your Energy, the Basic Steps. This is the article that you would want to take a look at later, all right? All right. Let me go back here again. Trying to go back there. Oh, no, I keep clicking the wrong button. I'm not seeing. All right, now I'm back here on the right screen, all right? All right, good luck to you, Val. I hope that gives you some ideas. All right. Hello, Randy. Let's see. I had steroid shot for pain. I know steroids suppress the immune system. What kind of supplement should I take to keep the immune system strong so Lyme symptoms don't get worse? There probably is not a specific. So steroids do an acute suppression of the immune system, but eventually their effect lifts. The trouble is during that acute suppression is when Lyme can get more active. Any of the herbs that you take to boost your immune system have more of a long-term effect. They're not acute acting, okay? So I'm not clear if you're going to get benefit from herbs here, but you could. If you were to want to do some herbs that boost your immune system, but again, it would be hard to reverse the acute immune suppressing effect of the steroids, okay? But what could give some longer-term help to boosting your immune system is get sleep, okay? Correct your thyroid and your hormone problems. All right, you got to make sure you're doing that. Lower cytokines. Cytokines suppress the immune system, okay? So these are the basic immune boosting steps. You want to make sure you follow those things, okay? And in addition, you could try medicinal mushrooms. In what I like to use for general immune support with medicinal mushrooms is something called the Immune Builder 5 mushroom formula. Mushrooms turn on T cells, your immune cells that fight infection, okay? There's a variety of mushrooms that you can use, and the ones that seem to have the most benefit are maitake, shiitake, and reishi mushrooms. Also, cordyceps can be helpful too. And I like the product I like is a product made out of Oregon by a company called JHS Naturals. They do a nice hot water extract. So part of the problem with mushrooms is some companies do ground up mushrooms. And when they grind up the mushrooms, you get all the garbage that grows on top of the mushroom, which can be fungus and can be mold sometimes. Okay, so I don't like using other products. I like the JHS Natural, and I like using the Immune Builder 5 mushroom formula, 1 pill 3 times a day. The other thing you can do to boost your immune system, in addition to those basic steps I just described, is to be on something called transfer factors. So transfer factors are made by what I'll call the detectives in your immune system, and they're made to turn on the army, okay? So your immune system, when I talk about transfer factors, I like to divide the immune system into 2 parts. There's part of the immune system I'll call the detectives, and there's another part called the army. The detectives can tell that a germ is there. They can even identify what the germ is and they know where it is, but they don't fight the war. They have to give information to the army. And they give information in 2 ways. Number 1, they try to turn on the army by making cytokines, all right? We talked about that earlier, all right? But the other thing they make are these things called transfer factors that transfer information to the army. Now, every type of germ that's in us has its own kind of transfer factors. So our immune system makes transfer factors that are targeted just at Borrelia Lyme germ, for instance. Or they'll make transfer factors that are targeted at virus infections, for instance, okay? So the transfer factors, you can find a transfer factor mix. There is a transfer factor mix that's targeted at Lyme. And it's called transfer factor Lyme plus, LYM, and then plus, PLUS. Although I think the manufacturer Research Nutritionals is changing the name of it now. I think it's just going to be called transfer factor L plus, all right? And it has transfer factors in it against Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, cytomegalovirus, human herpes virus type 6, Epstein-Barr virus, and mycoplasma and chlamydia pneumoniae. These are all infections that are part of this whole Lyme complex that some people have, all right? And if you do the transfer factors, you're going to take one pill 2 times a day, all right? That's how I usually would do the transfer factors. You could do both. You could actually do the transfer factors, and you could do the mushroom mix as well too, okay? All right, let me, I'm just going to quickly show you an article that you can look at later. All right, so I'm back here in the Treat Lyme book again. So in terms of immune system, take a look at the immune system chapter right here. And in here is an article called Immune System 101, The Basics. I would follow these steps, okay? This is where I talk about sleep, hormones, lowering cytokines. And I think I also in here, if I'm correct, I do talk about cytokines, hormones, toxins, and treating infections. I talk about transfer factors here. I also talk about medicinal mushrooms in here too, okay? So these are some steps that you might want to take a look at. The other thing I'd point out is there is an article that I have on just on transfer factors. Yeah, here it is. This is one called Transfer Factors Turn on the Army if you want to get more information than what I just described about transfer factors as well too, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, Randy, thank you for that question and good luck to you. All right, let's see here. All right, it's a question from Leslie. Hi, Dr. Ross. Could you please connect on the reliable... Oh, I think I already took that one. We talked about that earlier. Let me get rid of that. All right. Hello, Joni. Can you please talk about tick-borne relapsing fever? Okay. So there is another type of spirochete infection transmitted by ticks that gives you relapsing fever. You'll periodically have a temperature rise. The treatment approach is actually the same as it would be to treat Lyme. It's a spirochete illness. It is a Borrelia germ. It's a type of Borrelia germ. And so my approach is to use the same kind of treatment approach that I would for Lyme. It doesn't change how I go about doing it, okay? So I would take a look at the successful treatment recipe for my approach of how to manage that, Joni, okay? All right, good luck to you. Hello, let's see, Christy, I think. Yeah, we already took care of that one earlier. Let me get rid of that. Let's see here, what do we got? Hi, Carol. Are you familiar with the Cowden protocol? If so, can you talk about that? Thank you. So the Cowden protocol was designed by a heart doctor named Cowden, okay? And I don't think it works well. That's my comments about the Cowden protocol. I think there's 2 things that I find useful out of Cowden protocol. Actually 3 things, but the 2 most useful things I find in Cowden are the Banderol cemento. And Cowden will use those as part of his treatment for Lyme, but the trouble is he rotates people on and off of them. And I find that they're better to be used continuously, and I find those 2 herbs treat the Lyme germ effectively 85 to 90% of the time. The other parts of the Cowden, though, I just don't find to be that useful. Houtunia I sometimes will use as a part of a treatment protocol for Bartonella, but I usually will combine it with another herb that I get out of the Buhner herbal protocol called Siddha acuta, okay? Part of the problem with the Cowden protocol is he misses the fact that you need to deal with other aspects, which is you got to correct sleep, you got to lower cytokines, and he does nothing to deal with the cytokines, okay? You've got to correct hormonal imbalances, and although he has an adrenal support formula, he doesn't give you enough information to figure out whether you should be on it or not, okay? So if you take a look at my successful treatment protocol, the successful treatment recipe, you'll see in there, I tell you, figure out how you have to figure out if you have low adrenals, and I give you ideas on whether you should correct it. Cowden also doesn't really deal effectively with the fact that many people are loaded with yeast in their intestines that contributes to the problem, and he doesn't tell you how to figure out if you have that as a problem. He incorrectly thinks that some of his germ killers treat yeast effectively, and they don't. So I just want to let you know, I don't find it useful that way. I think Cowden is very much overstates the benefit that his detox regimen gets. So he uses Panella and Berber for detox, and I don't find those to be that helpful, actually. I think there's other more promising things you can do, like building glutathione up, okay? I find that people get benefit from Cowden maybe about 40% to 50% of the time. I find, again, the most successful part of Cowden is the Banderol cemento. You will do better if you're trying to find a protocol to use. If you take a look at the successful treatment recipe, it does take a little bit more of your putting your thinking cap on and designing parts of the treatment for yourself, but you will have a much better outcome if you build your herbal treatment or even natural medicine treatments around around the successful treatment recipe, and don't rely on Cowden. I think he's a good person. I think he's well-intended, but when you look at the practicality of how it works, I just don't find it to be that useful, okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Carol. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Do you feel it's beneficial to move to a new holistic Lyme doctor after working with the same one for over 2 years and getting 70% better, but stuck at this plateau? It's ready for a new perspective. So, Lori, yeah, it could be. I mean, if your doctor isn't having any new ideas, sometimes it's helpful to get another opinion. I sometimes will tell my patients after I get to a point, I say, we may want to get another opinion. You may want to see somebody else, see if they have some ideas over what I'm missing, okay? And as you know, I have lots of ideas. I mean, the whole Treat Lyme book is about my ideas, but at times even I get stumped with somebody. So yeah, it's helpful. You might even want to just get another opinion once to see if they have some ideas on how to move your treatment forward, okay? All right, good luck to you, Lori. Hello, Brenda. Thank you, Dr. Rush. You're welcome. Let's see, I have Lyme and Bart, tried 8 hyperbaric treatments for 90 minutes each. I started having problems with the nerves in my throat. It feels like there is an air bubble there. It will not go away. I also have burning on the top of my head. I stopped the treatments. How can I repair something here? Hold on a minute, Brenda. I got to see if there's a second part to your question wandering around back here. Aha, there it is. How do I repair the damage? All right. So your damage, Brenda, sounds like it's neurologic, like you had some kind of a nerve injury. I'm not quite sure why it happened with the hyperbaric oxygen, because hyperbaric oxygen can actually sometimes repair injury, but that's what it sounds like to me. So that air bubble sensation is a neurologic sensation, okay? And the burning is a neurologic sensation. So I know I talked tonight earlier about how to repair nerve injury. You'll find it in the Brain and Nerves chapter, the article that describes that with some detail in the Brain and Nerves chapter of the Treat Lyme book. You would want to take a look at the article on neuropathy repair, all right? I also talked about it earlier as part of the webinar tonight too. So anyhow, Brenda, good luck to you. And thank you for that question. Hello, Chris. Let's see. Years ago, my homeopath got rid of 99.99999% of my fibromyalgia, but the fatigue and recurring cold and flu symptoms have not gone away. She wants to try a cleanse, but I'm concerned that without antibiotics, nothing is going to get better. My question to you is this. Since the fibromyalgia went away, let's see here. I notice cleanse is something you do when nothing else works. Thanks again, Chris. I think there was a second part I believe that's missing here, Chris. So let me just talk broadly here. I'm not sure if I have the full question here, but you know, a cleanse isn't necessarily going to get rid of fatigue or the recurrent cold and flu symptoms. This sounds like you still have germ activity going on to me. And I don't know whether you were treated for Lyme with antimicrobials or not, but you may want to consider doing that. You may want to consider doing a Banderol cemento. The other thing that you might look at in terms of energy is if you've had infection in you this long, you probably have a degree of mitochondrial injury. You might want to take a look at the steps that are recommended for mitochondria repair. Again, you'll find the mitochondria repair article in the chapter on energy and fatigue. And then using Banderol cemento, I talked about earlier tonight, but there's an article in the Treat Lyme book on the Banderol cemento. Actually, I'll show you so that you know where you can find information about how to use those two herbs. I'm going to do a screen share here real quick. Okay, so I'm back in the Treat Lyme book. I'm going to take a look at the chapters, and I'm going to look under this chapter called Anti-Germs, RXs, and Herbs. And in here, you'll find an article on Banderol cemento. So this is otoba bark extract, which is Banderol. Cemento is cat's claw. I talk about Eva Choppy's work on this. I talk about why these are great at removing biofilms, treating treatment-resistant Lyme, etc. Okay, so take a look at this otoba bark extract cat's claw tinctures article for information about how you could use those to treat your Lyme. Okay. All right, let me go back here. All right, thanks for that question, Chris, and good luck to you. Hello, Ruth. Let's see, I was treating for Lyme and Babesia for 22, I think that's months, but stopped treatment abruptly. My Lyme literate medical doctor diagnosed me with Lyme through IgG and Babesia through symptoms. I suspected BART but was never tested for it. Now I have severe pain in the bottom of my feet and visual symptoms and severe anxiety. All right. So, Ruth, there is the possibility of Bartonella with you. I like your Lyme doctor, I tend not to make my decisions to treat Bartonella based on testing. I rely on the symptoms. Same with Babesia too. All right, the problem with Bartonella testing is that we estimate there can be about 30 different strains, and we're only good about testing for 2. Babesia, we estimate 15 to 20 strains, and we're only good about testing for 2. All right, so I look at what the symptoms tell me, all right? So symptoms that can suggest Bartonella include pain on the soles of the feet, anxiety, persistent anxiety is a big one, all right? Bladder issues, which can be burning on urination, urinary frequency, restless leg syndrome. So you have a feel like things are crawling on your legs and you have to move them around a lot. Severe cognitive impairment can sometimes be part of Bartonella. Abdominal pain for which you can't find a reason for it. Sometimes Bartonella will give abdominal pain. Bartonella also gives a lot of neurologic hypersensitivity. So sound sensitivity, touch sensitivity, light sensitivity. Sometimes I'm going to think about Bartonella. People that have seizures or tremors part of their Lyme, sometimes will have Bartonella too, all right? So I've just listed off a number of symptoms that make me think about Bartonella. You don't have to have all of them to have Bartonella, but the fact that you've got pain in the bottom of your feet, visual symptoms, and severe anxiety would have me questioning whether Bartonella is part of this as well too, okay? All right, good luck to you, Ruth. Hello, let's see, Janet. Hi, let's see. I recently watched a video by Dr. Alan McDonald that says in 10 MS patients, he found 10 spinal fluids containing nematode parasites with Borrelia in the worms. He suggests the implications for treatment would be anti-helminthic, anti-worm medications. Do you agree with this implication? You know, I don't know. I haven't seen that study enough to know to even comment, to be quite honest with you. Janet, I don't know. I would need to look into this a little bit more before I could give you a comment on that. Okay. I need to see about, I trust Dr. Al McDonald's a good doctor. I think he's done some marvelous work. He's the one that discovered biofilms in people with Alzheimer's. But I need to look at what his work actually means and the quality of the work before I decide if it means something useful or not, or whether to go that direction. And I just don't know enough about this piece of work. I got to tell you about these webinars. I learn things from my patients. I learn things that I should be looking into at times. And so it looks like I'm going to have to look into Alan McDonald's work here. All right. Thank you for that question, Jan. All right. Hello, Lois. Let's see. My naturopath watches your webinars and thought I should ask your opinion. I have been sick for many years. I am significantly underweight because I developed severe food sensitivities which trigger migraines and severe headache. I also have depression, brain fog, and then you said see next. Let me see if I can find the second part here. I live in central New Jersey and she thinks I likely have Lyme. I took the Quest lab test. My doctor said I do not have Lyme, but I did test positive for one band, 41 KD. She feels I should have the $200 IGeneX test. Do you feel I have Lyme, and should I take this test? Thanks, Lois. All right, Lois, let me go back. I have to go back and reread that first part of your question here. Let's see. Been sick for many years, underweight, food sensitivities, migraines, and severe headaches, depression, anxiety, brain fog. You know, I don't know if you have Lyme or not. I would need to ask you a lot more questions. Okay, I just want you to know that. And I'm going to make a few more comments though. The IGeneX test, the $200 test, which actually be $210. You would want to do just two things with that test. So IGeneX does many kinds, but you want to get the one that is IgG and IgM Western blot, which is test 188, test 189. That test is a high quality Western blot. It is better quality of Western blot than is done by LabCorp and Quest, the standard labs, okay? And there's many reasons for that, but it's a lab that the IGeneX method will find Lyme if you have it about 80 to 85% of the time. And if you have Lyme, it is something you might want to deal with, okay? So I would recommend it given your symptoms. Having said that though, Lyme typically is not going to cause weight gaining problems. One thing that can give a lot of food sensitivities and weight gain problems can be chronic parasite infections in your intestines. Now, I would suspect somebody's done stool studies at some point, given your symptoms here, and they probably have said you don't have parasites. But I want to let you know, you still could. Stool studies are notoriously difficult to do and find accurate results when somebody has parasites. If you have parasites living in your intestines, they basically use all your nutrients, and so therefore you starve. You don't get enough nutrients in. Having infection in the intestines can lead to food sensitivities too. Another type of infection that could be going on here and that you ought to have looked at and possibly treated would be the possibility of too many yeast in your intestines too. And if you want to see if you might have that kind of problem, take a look at the chapter on yeast that I have. There's a whole chapter called yeast. You'll find it in the Treat Lyme book. And in there, I have an article about how to diagnose yeast. Okay, I talk about how to do it. I also have information about how to diagnose yeast in the successful treatment recipe, my Lyme disease treatment protocol. But when I see this picture, you have a picture, the symptoms suggest having excess cytokines. Lyme can trigger too many cytokines. Parasite infections can trigger too many cytokines. Yeast in your intestines can trigger too many cytokines. Yeast and parasites can increase food sensitivities by causing something in the gut called leaky gut syndrome. And parasites can lead to weight loss because the parasites use all your nutrition. You don't get enough absorbed yourself, okay? So those are some things, and your naturopath should have some ideas on how to deal with all of these issues. Take a look at the Treat Lyme book. I have ideas on how to deal with all these issues too, including the parasites, how to diagnose them and how to treat them. My favorite way of treating parasites, if you have it, is to use a drug called Linea, a 500 milligram pill, one pill twice a day for 3 weeks. The way it works, it should treat about any kind of parasite. You don't have to identify what they are, okay? And I use it as kind of a shotgun approach to go after parasites, all right? So those are just some thoughts for you to think about, all right? Good luck to you, Lois. Let's see. All right. I've got somebody that's coming to see me tomorrow that just wrote me an email here, so I don't think I need to post that here. I'm going to do this question here. Let's see. Let's see, hi, Beth. Let's see. I believe after 20 years, I have a new infection. It has impacted the nerves in my arms. I have lost mobility in my right arm. I tried the Klinghardt liposomal herbal vital. It made the bugs in my arm shake right away. By the 5th day, glowing fungus feeling in intestines and couldn't continue. Let's see, Beth, if I can find the rest of your question. Beth, I'm not sure what the comment is here. Look at here. So just a comment. I think there may be a second part to your question, but I'm not able to find it here. So it is possible that people can get reinfected. It is also possible that the Lyme that has been living in you got more active and could be triggering the neuropathy. Klinghart's liposomal herbal vital, I have looked at what's in it. The problem with his protocol is it kind of is a gunshot herb. It has things in it that should address about every kind of infection in Lyme. And it's possible maybe you're reacting to some of those, okay? And it's possible he doesn't have enough strength of any one of those to actually work effectively too. I generally am skeptical of products that have multiple germ killers in them because if something goes wrong, you don't know which one's doing it. And if it's not working, you don't know why. It may be that if you went a higher dose of this one herb or the other one, okay? And frankly, I don't know enough yet as to whether Klinghart's protocol, his herbal tincture, is even going to work. I know it's out there. I know he's well intended, and he's a smart doc. But I think he's wrong sometimes too. So I guess I can't comment here. And I don't know if I have a good comment because I'm not quite clear what your question is here from what you wrote too. All right. So everyone, that's how I'm going to end the webinar tonight, is to say I'm not sure. But that's it. It's been about an hour and a half here tonight. And I've got two Basenji dogs that need to go out for a walk. They've been kind of looking at me here like, it's time to be done with this. So it is. So I'm going to get them out of here soon. Thank you for being with me here tonight. I hope you found this useful. I want to let you know that tomorrow, probably by around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, you should get an email from me with a link to the webinar, all right? I'm sorry, to the recording. Now, what I'm going to do for those of you that are still here is I'm going to take you back over to treatlyme.net, the Treat Lyme book. And from there, you can go ahead and read articles if you want. If you want to subscribe to the Treat Lyme book, just go ahead and click on any article that requires a subscription and you'll be asked to subscribe, okay? And I hope you would support the work that we're doing here, because the work you do when you do the subscriptions actually supports my ability to do these free webinars so people can get help, all right? So if you have the means, I hope that you would help support the work that we're doing here, all right? The other thing is, if you want more direct advice from me, you can sign up for one of our one-to-one medical consults, which is an online visit that I do. Finally, if you're looking for high-quality herbs, take a look at the Marty Ross MD and Tara Brooke ND supplements. I showed that to you earlier tonight. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take the time when I redirect you over to the treatlyme.net site here in a minute to sign up for next week's webinar as well, too. All right. Good night, everyone. It's been good visiting with you. I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.